Welcome to DS Trucks. In this video, I want to talk about four-wheel drive low and what it is useful for. So in our case, we have a 2019 F250. It's got the 6.2 liter gas V8. It's got 430 gears and a 6-speed automatic transmission. And it does have four-wheel drive, so it has four-wheel drive low as well. And it's one of those things that really doesn't get used very often in the truck. Four-wheel drive low, for whatever reason. For the way that I use the truck, I really don't have a ton of need for it. But what is it good for? What is it useful for? I think the most useful situation for four-wheel drive low would be if you had to get a very heavy load moving, a very heavy load rolling, something like 25,000 pounds or 30,000 pounds or something like that. You have dry pavement in good conditions, maybe some kind of an off-road situation. You're trying to get all this weight rolling and you need more gearing, you need more leverage. And the reason I say such a heavy weight is because with the available horsepower with this engine and the 430 foot-pounds of torque that you get with the 6.2, typically speaking, you're able to get some pretty heavy stuff rolling. I mean, you could pull 15,000 pounds with this truck as it is, and it's got a 430 gear range, so you could technically have no issues. You would have zero issues pulling 15,000 pounds and getting that kind of weight moving. So, it's kind of an interesting thing because four-wheel drive low gives you so much torque, but at the end of the day, your limiting factor is going to be your available traction. So if there was rain on the ground, if there was snow, if there's anything like that, if you're on grass, then your four-wheel drive low is going to be somewhat less useful because your wheels are going to spin. So in theory, you could be in four-wheel drive high and get out of the same situation because your limiting factor is your available traction. Now, you do see a lot of people say, oh yeah, we got stuck in the mud or we got stuck in grass and we put it in four-wheel drive low and we were able to climb out of it. It's interesting. I don't know, from my experience, being stuck in grass, and I've done this, being stuck in a situation where you have loss of traction. In my personal experience, it doesn't seem like four-wheel drive low helped. It definitely seemed to help to lock the rear end and to put it in just regular four-wheel drive high and all that. But four-wheel drive low, in my experience, didn't seem to help in a situation where traction is the limiting factor. Now, it could be wrong, but from my experience, I've never been able to really use four-wheel drive low in that situation. Now, there was a time that I've ripped out fence posts using chain and using the recovery hooks. And when I did that, I had the truck in four-wheel drive low, and I was on grass, and the torque was just so high that it just broke the tires loose quicker. So it really didn't matter too much to be in four-wheel drive low in a situation where you're on grass or loose ground. Now, one thing that would make a difference is tires. So if you had really big tires, then four-wheel drive low would make a lot of sense. If you had 37s, or if you had anything bigger, or even bigger than 37s, like a rock crawler or something like that, with huge wheels, maybe 40 or bigger inch wheels, then four-wheel drive low kind of makes sense because the wheels are so big, the actual rotating diameter of the wheel is taking away your gearing. So four-wheel drive low could put some of that back, and since you have such bigger wheels, you could get the traction that you need. To me, it seems like with a stock wheel, there's not a whole lot that you can get out of a four-wheel drive low situation. So as you see, we have a snow plow mount on the truck, and when it comes to plowing snow, four-wheel drive low, in my opinion, has been pretty useless just because there's limited traction available. The ground's wet or icy or snowy, and like I said, the available power of these modern trucks, 385 horsepower, 430 foot-pounds of torque, and four-wheel drive high, I'm able to push pretty much anything that I need to push. And if it won't push it, then I need to get a little momentum rather than having more torque. So using momentum and using the weight of the vehicle is how I'm going to get snow moving. There are times where you're pushing snow, it's heavy and wet, it's slushy, and you need some power. And I haven't used four-wheel drive low for that. And in fact, I don't like to use my drivetrain to get that kind of weight moving. I'll use the mass of the vehicle. I'll get the drivetrain. I use the drivetrain to get the mass of the vehicle rolling, get some momentum, and hit it at maybe 3 or 4 miles per hour. And that initial bump, that initial push will get that mass moving instead of putting all that strain on your clutches and your transmission and all your components. It's rather to take a little bit of a hit at a few miles per hour, 3, 4, 5 miles per hour, and then use that to get the weight moving. So that's kind of how I plow, and it's worked out good. I've never had transmission issues. I've never had any problems like that. Obviously, you want to watch your speed when you're hitting a pile. You don't want to do it at 15 an hour or nothing crazy. You definitely don't want to have your airbags going off or anything, but I've been pretty good at like 3 or 4 miles per hour hitting a pile in order to get it moving. So the times that I did try to plow in four-wheel drive low, it kind of freaked out the traction control system at times, where I had to turn off the truck and turn it back on in order to kind of reset the traction control system. And it's so torquey that you lose a little bit of control of your wheels. Like, you're going to push and then all your wheels are spinning, and you might not even really realize that your wheels are spinning. So I really don't like to push snow in four-wheel drive low. To me, it's not as effective. But now, having the 430 gears, I like to push snow a lot more with the 430 gears. It gives me a lot of advantage. But four-wheel drive low has just been too much, in my opinion. I've never had a truck that pushed better, in my opinion, in four-wheel drive low. Everything that I've ever plowed has been pushable with four-wheel drive high, and I never remotely felt the need to use low. And if it wasn't, and if I got something that was heavy, like I said, I use a little bit of speed, a little bit of, and I use the truck's mass in order to get the snow moving. So the real reason that I'm making this video is because I think the four-wheel drive low should be a little bit different. I think it would be interesting to have a different range. I see so many people that want a lower gear for their differential. So many people are interested in having a 430 gear, but you're going to suffer a little bit of MPG loss, especially in the diesels. For the gas engines, the 430 gear is, in my opinion, the way to go. You're not going to suffer too much of an MPG loss by going with the 430 gear in a gasoline application, because honestly, it just works out good. But for a diesel, to go to a 430 with all that low end torque, you're going to suffer some MPG loss. Now, let's just take a look at the F450. That truck comes standard with the 430 gear if you're looking at a pickup truck version of an F450, not the cabin chassis version, but the pickup truck F450 comes standard with a 430 gear, which is cool, but that's a lot of torque to put to the ground with just a 430 gear. You might actually be better off in a diesel with a different gear, like a 355, because you have so much available torque. With a diesel, it's almost beneficial in a lot of situations to be with a 3.55 gear. But in my opinion, I think it'd be cool if the transfer case, instead of having this four-wheel drive low that so many people never even shift into, if it was optional to somehow have that gear range be something that's lower but not too crazy low. Like, let's just say hypothetically you could have most of the time a 3.55 rear gear, and then use your transfer case to have the same torque of that 430 rear gear for those heavy duty towing applications, and at the same time have a setting to where it doesn't shift necessarily into four-wheel drive, but there is a modification that you can do if you have upfitter switches. I've seen guys use an upfitter switch to allow four-wheel drive low. Instead of four-wheel drive low, you can have two-wheel drive low. So if you're backing up a heavy trailer, let's just say if you're, hypothetically, if we're talking F450 and you're towing, let's say the maximum towing is 30,000 pounds. You got a 30,000 pound trailer, and then you got to back this thing up. Well, that heavy of a trailer might benefit from having it in two-wheel drive low. So they'll turn the upfitter switch to a two-wheel drive low, two-wheel drive low. So when it shifts into four-wheel drive low, it disconnects the front axle, so it only connects to the rear axle. So that's a mod. So why not have it to where you could use just two-wheel drive, but not quite so low? Because four-wheel drive low is such a low range that is really not recommended for the highway and things like that, because I think you run out of engine speed. So if you go through all your gears, you're not able to reach really a significant amount of speed, because now your engine RPMs are too high and you just can't get the full speed. But why not make it possible so you can have the same final drive that you would get from a 430 gear truck and a 3.55 gear truck, or maybe even like a 355 and a 488 rear gear. So when you're towing, you could use the capability to shift of a transfer case to shift to a final drive that you'd have with a 4.88 only while you're towing. And when you're not towing, you could get the benefits of a 3.55 rear gear. I think that would be an interesting modification, or interesting, as far as being aftermarket, I'm not sure if it's possible to go inside of a transfer case and change the ratios to some of those ratios. But from the factory, it'd be cool if you could have the benefits of like a 4.88 rear gear while towing, but a 3.55 rear gear while not towing. I think that'd be pretty cool, because if you're looking at a 350, you could benefit. F350 with a diesel is better in a 3.55 gear in every other situation except for maximum towing. When it comes to maximum towing, your 430 gear is going to be better. But how often are you going to use a four-wheel drive low? Or even if the transfer case, if there was some kind of optional transfer case that had 3 gears, if it had a four-wheel drive low and a four-wheel drive mid, and it had a two-wheel drive mode for both modes, that would be kind of cool. So you could be in four-wheel drive in the middle, or hit your upfitter switch, go to two-wheel drive in that mode, so you're towing heavy, but you're geared to something like a 4.88, which you'd get as a final drive, whatever that would be, rear gear. And if you really need for whatever reason to use four-wheel drive low, you could also use that and have the option to use either one of those ranges in two-wheel drive or four-wheel drive mode. I think that would be a cool addition to a truck, but I'm sure it's possible. But how complicated would something like that be to do? It shouldn't be too terribly complicated. It just would be a difference of having different gears. So when you think about a 10-speed, instead of having a 10-speed, you have a high, a low. The problem that I really have with four-wheel drive low is that there's not that many situations where you need it. If it had 3 gears, a 3-speed transfer case that gave you a mid, so that you could take advantage of a 3.55 gear, or you could go in the middle and have a really good towing gear, and then at the very lowest, you could have a good low gear for maybe you want to do a tug of war with another truck, and you've got it in four-wheel drive low, and you got some weight on the truck, and you want to win. That four-wheel drive low is going to be the way to go. But most people would just, I feel like there's not a ton of situations where you need the lowest gear. So if it were a compromise between four-wheel drive low or four-wheel drive mid, I would go for the mid, a four-wheel drive mid that you could use the upfitter switch to switch over to two-wheel drive, so that you'd have something that's good for towing, good for pulling heavy weight, and you'd have a vehicle that's good as far as MPG. But comment below, tell me what you think about this topic. Hope to hear from you soon. Thank you for watching DS Trucks, where we run nothing but the best. Nothing but the best. Over and out, and see you guys in the next video.